440. In the house of Cleopas, the head of the synagogue. 457 God created me when his purpose unfolded. Prov 8, 22. 1 Introduction. August 22nd, 1944. Jesus orders me, take a completely new notebook. Write down on the first page what I dictated on August the 16th. She will be spoken of in this book. I obey and I write. August 16, 1944. Jesus says, today write only this. Purity has such a value, that the womb of a creature can contain the uncontainable one, because she possessed the greatest purity that a creature of God could have. The most holy Trinity descended with its perfections, inhabited with its three persons, enclosed its infinity in a small space. But it did not debase itself by doing so, because the love of the Virgin and the will of God widened this space until they rendered it a heaven. And the most holy Trinity made itself known by its characteristics. The Father, being once again the creator of the creature, as on the sixth day of creation, had a real, worthy daughter fashioned to his perfect image. The mark of God was impressed so completely and exactly on Mary, that only in the firstborn was it greater. Mary can be called the second-born of the Father because, owing to the perfection granted to her and preserved by her, and to her dignity of spouse and mother of God and Queen of Heaven, she comes second after the Son of the Father and second in his eternal thought, which of eterno took delight in her. The Son, being also her Son, did teach her, by the mystery of grace, his truth, and wisdom, when he was but an embryo, growing in her womb. The Holy Spirit appeared amongst men, for an anticipated prolonged Pentecost. 1 Introduction. Love for her whom he loved, consolation to men because of the fruit of her womb, sanctification on account of the maternity of the Holy One. God, to reveal himself to men in the new and complete form, which starts the redemption era, did not select for his throne a star in the sky, nor the palace of a powerful man. Neither did he want the wings of angels as the base of his feet. He wanted a spotless womb. Also Eve had been created spotless. But she wanted to become corrupt of her own free will. Mary, who lived in a corrupt world, Eve was in a pure world, did not wish to violate her purity, not even with one thought remotely connected with sin. She knew that sin exists. She saw its various and horrible forms and implications. She saw them all, including the most hideous one, deicide. But she knew them solely to expiate them and to be, forever, the woman who has mercy on sinners and prays for their redemption. This thought will be the introduction to other holy things that I will give for your benefit and the welfare of many people. 2 Joachim and make a vow to the Lord. August 22nd, 1944. I see the inside of a house. In it there is an elderly woman sitting at a loom. I would say, noting that her hair, which formerly was certainly jet black, is now quite gray, and her face, though not wrinkled, has the gravity that comes with age, that she must be 55 years old. Not more. In estimating a woman's age, I found my calculations upon my mother's face, whose image is more than ever present to me in these times, which remind me of her final days at my bedside. The day after tomorrow it will be a year since I had my last look at her. My mother had a very youthful face, but was prematurely gray. When she was 50 she was as gray as at the end of her life. But, apart from the maturity of her appearance, nothing betrayed her age. I could therefore be mistaken in estimating the age of an elderly woman. The woman I see weaving in a room, bright with the light coming from a door wide open onto a large garden, a small holding I would call it because it smoothly extends up and down a green slope. The woman is beautiful in her definite Jewish features. Her eyes are black and deep, and while I do not know why, they remind me of the Baptists. But, although they are as proud as the eyes of a queen, they are also sweet, as if a veil of blue had been laid on the flash of an eagle, sweet and somewhat sad, as of a person who thinks of and regrets lost things. Her skin is brown, but not excessively so. Her mouth, slightly large, is well formed and is motionless in an austere setting, which, however, is not a hard one. Her nose is long and thin, slightly drooping, an aquiline nose, which suits her eyes. She is well built, but not fat, well proportioned and I think tall, judging her in a sitting position. I think she is weaving a curtain or a carpet. The many-colored shuttles move fast on the brown-colored weft, and what has already been woven shows a pretty plaited work of Greek frets and rosettes in which green, yellow, red, and deep blue interweave and blend as in a mosaic. The woman is wearing a very plain dark dress, a red-violet color, the hue of a special species of pansy. She stands up when she hears someone knocking at the door. She is really tall. She opens the door. A woman asks her, "And, will you give me your emperor?" 1. I will fill it for you. The woman has a lovely 5-year-old child with her, who at once clings to Anne's dress, and she caresses him while going into another room, and returns with a beautiful copper emperor which she hands to the woman saying, "You are always good to old Anne. Indeed you are. May God reward you with the son and the other children you will have, you fortunate one." Anne sighs. The woman looks at her and does not know what to say in the circumstances. To divert attention from the distressing situation of which she is aware, she remarks, "I am leaving Alpheus with you, if you do not mind, so that I will be quicker and I will fill many jars and jugs for you." Alpheus is very pleased to stay and the reason is clear. As soon as his mother is gone, Anne picks him up and takes him into the orchard, lifts him up to a pergola, 2, of grapes as golden as a topaz and says to him, "Eat, eat, because they are good," and she kisses him on his little face soiled with the juice of the grapes which the child eats avidly. Then she laughs heartily and at once looks younger on account of the lovely set of teeth she displays, and the joy that shines on her face, dispelling her years, as the child asks, "And what are you going to give me now?" and he gazes at her with large wide open eyes of a deep gray blue color. She laughs and plays with him bending on her knees and goes on, "What will you give me if I give you? If I give you? Guess." And the child, clapping his little hands, with a big smile responds, "Kisses, kisses I will give you, nice Anne, good Anne, Mama Anne." And, when she hears him say, "Mama Anne," gives out a real cry of joyful love and cuddles the little one declaring, "My darling. Dear. Dear. Dear." At each dear a kiss descends upon the rosy cheeks. Then they go to a cupboard and from a plate she takes some honey cakes. "I made them for you, darling of poor Anne, because you love me. But tell me, how much do you love me?" And the child, thinking of what has impressed him most, says, "As much as the temple of the Lord," and kisses him again on his lively little eyes, his little red lips, and the child cuddles against her like a kitten. His mother goes back and forth with a full jar and smiles without saying anything. She leaves them to their abusiveness. An elderly man comes in from the orchard. He is a little smaller than Anne, and his thick hair is completely white. His face is of a clear complexion with a squarely cut beard. His eyes are like blue turquoises and his eyelashes are light brown, almost fair. His robe is dark brown. Anne does not see him because her back is turned to the door and he approaches her from behind questioning, "And nothing for me?" And turns round and says, "Oh Joachim, have you finished your work?" At the same time little Alpheus runs to the elderly man's knees exclaiming, "Also to you, also to you." And when the man bends down to kiss him, the child clings to his neck, ruffling his beard with his little hands and his kisses. Joachim also has his gift. He brings his left hand from behind his back and offers the child such a beautiful apple, that it seems made of the finest porcelain. Smiling he says to the child who is holding his hands out eagerly, "Wait, I will cut it for you. You cannot take it as it is. It is bigger than you." With a small pruning knife, which he carries on his belt, he cuts the fruit into small slices. He seems to be feeding a nestling, Such is the care with which he puts the morsels into the little wide open mouth that munches and chews. Look at his eyes, Joachim. Don't they look like two little wavelets of the Sea of Galilee when the evening wind draws a veil of cloud over the sky? Anne is speaking, resting one hand on her husband's shoulder, and she is leaning slightly on him, too, an attitude revealing the deep love of a wife, a love still perfect. After many years of marriage, and Joachim looks at her lovingly and agrees, saying, "Most beautiful." And his curls, aren't they the color of crops dried in the sun? Look, in them there is a mixture of gold and copper. Ah, if we had had a child, I would have liked him thus, with these eyes and this hair. Anne has bent down, in fact she is on her knees, and with a deep sigh she kisses the two large grey blue eyes. Joachim, too, sighs. But he wishes to comfort her. He puts his hand on her thick curly gray hair and whispers to her, "We must continue to hope. God can do everything. While we are alive, the miracle may happen, particularly when we love him and we love each other." Joachim stresses the final phrase. But Anne is silent, dejected, and she is standing, her head bowed, to conceal two tears streaming down her face. Only little Alpheus sees them, and he is confounded and grieved that his great friend is crying, as he sometimes does. He lifts his hands and wipes the tears. "Don't cry, Anne. We are happy just the same. At least I am, because I have you. Also I have you. But I have not given you a child. I think I have distressed the Lord, because he has made my womb barren. Oh my wife. How can you have distressed him, you holy woman? Listen. Let us go once more to the temple. For this reason. Not only for the tabernacles. Let us say a long prayer. Perhaps it will happen to you as it did to Sarah, as it happened to Anne of Elkanah. They waited for a long time, and they considered themselves dejected because they were barren. Instead, a holy son was maturing for them in the heavens of God. Smile, my wife. Your crying is a greater sorrow to me than being without offspring. We shall take Alpheus with us. We shall make him pray, since he is innocent. And God will hear his prayer and ours together and will grant it. Yes, let us make a vow to the Lord. The offspring will be his. As long as he grants it. Oh, to hear me being called Mama. And Alpheus, an astonished and innocent spectator, exclaims, "I will call you so. Yes, my darling. But you have your mummy, and I have no baby." The vision ceases here. I understand that Mary's birth cycle has begun. And I am very happy because I wanted it so much. And I think that you, 3, will be happy, too. Before I began to write, I heard Mother say to me, "So, my dear daughter, write about me. All your grief will be comforted." And while saying so, she laid her hand on my head, caressing me kindly. Then the vision began. But at first, that is, until I heard the 50-year-old woman being called by name, I did not realize that I was in the presence of Mother's mother and consequently of the grace of her birth. 1. Amphora, a two-handled jar commonly used by the Greeks and Romans. 2. Pergola, grapevines supported by poles and forming a kind of roof with their leaves. 3. It is to be noted that Maria Valtorta often addresses her spiritual father in the course of her work. 3. Anne, praying in the temple, has her wish fulfilled. August 23, 1944. Before writing the following, I wish to make a note. The house did not seem to me the well-known one of Nazareth. The location, at least, is quite different. Also, the orchard garden is larger, and beyond it fields can be seen, not many, but they are there. Later, when Mary is married, there is only the orchard, large, but not more than an orchard, and I have never seen in other visions the room that I saw. I do not know whether for financial reasons Mary's parents disposed of part of their property, or whether Mary, when she left the temple, moved into another house given to her perhaps by Joseph. I do not remember whether in past visions and instructions I had a clear sign that the house of Nazareth was the house where she was born. My head is very heavy with fatigue. And then, particularly with dictations, I forget the words at once, although the commands remain recorded in my mind and illuminate my soul. But details fade away immediately. If after 1 hour I had to repeat what I heard, with the exception of one or two main sentences, I would not know anything else. Visions, on the contrary, remain clear in my mind because I had to watch them myself. I hear dictations but I see visions. Therefore they remain clear in my mind, which functioned in following them through their various phases. I was hoping there would be a declaration on yesterday's vision. Instead, nothing. I am beginning to see and I write. Outside the walls of Jerusalem, on the hills and among the olive trees, there is a large crowd. It looks like a large market. But there are no booths. There are no shouting charlatans or peddlers. No games. There are coarse wool tents, certainly proof against water, hanging on posts fixed to the ground, and tied to the posts there are green branches, providing both ornamental decoration and practical coolness. Other tents, instead, are made entirely of branches fixed to the ground and tied in rich fashion, thus forming small green tunnels. Under each tent there are people of every age and condition, speaking quietly and earnestly, with the cry of a child breaking the quietness now and again. It is nightfall and the lights of small oil lamps are glittering here and there throughout the odd camp. Around the lights some families are taking their supper on the ground, the mothers holding the little ones in their laps. Many of these tired infants fall asleep holding pieces of bread in their tiny pink fingers while their small heads fall on their mothers' breasts, little chicks under hens. The mothers finish their meals, as best they can, each with only one hand free, while the other hand is holding the child against her heart. Meanwhile other families are not yet supping and are talking in the dimness of twilight, waiting for the food to be ready for eating. Small fires are lit here and there and women are busy around them. Slow somewhat plaintive lullabies soothe children who are having difficulty in going to sleep. High above is a beautiful clear sky, which is becoming a deeper and deeper blue until it looks like an enormous black bluish soft velvet valerium. On this cloth, a little at a time, invisible craftsmen and decorators fix gems and night lights, some isolated, some in odd geometrical patterns, amongst which stand out the great bear and the little bear, in the shape of a cart, with its shaft resting on the ground after the oxen have been freed from the yoke. The pole star is smiling in all its brightness. I realize it is October because the loud voice of a man says so. This month of October is beautiful as very rarely in past years. Here is Anne coming from a fire with something in her hands, spread over a loaf of bread which is large and flat like a cake and serves also as a tray. Little Alpheus is holding onto her skirt and is prattling in his little voice. Joachim, when he sees Anne approaching, hastens to light his lamp. He is at the entrance of his little hut made of branches and is speaking to about 30 years old, whom Alpheus greets from a distance in his shrill voice saying, "Daddy." And in her stately walk passes along the rows of huts. She is stately, yet humble. She is not haughty with anyone. She picks up the child of a very poor woman, as the urchin had fallen at her feet while running like a little scamp. Since he has dirted his face and is crying, and cleans him, comforts him, and hands him to his mother who has run towards them and is apologizing. And says to her, "Oh, it's nothing. I am glad he did not hurt himself. He is a lovely child." What age is he? 3 years. He is my second youngest and I am expecting another one shortly. I have 6 boys. Now I would like to have a girl. A girl is a lot for her mother. The Most High has consoled you very much, woman, sighs Anne. And the woman goes on, "Yes. I am poor, but the children are our joy and the bigger ones already help with the work. And, madam, it is very obvious that Anne is of a higher social standing and the woman realizes it. How many children have you got?" "None." Isn't this one yours? No. He is the son of a very good neighbor. He is my consolation. Did yours die or? I never had any. Oh. The poor woman looks at her pitifully, and says goodbye to her, sighing very heavily, and goes to her hut. I have kept you waiting, Joachim. I was held up by a poor woman, the mother of 6 boys. Fancy that? And she is expecting another child shortly. Joachim sighs. Alpheus' father calls him, but he answers, I am staying with Anne. I will help her. Everybody laughs. Leave him. He does not disturb us. He is not bound by the law yet. Here or there he is but a little bird eating, states Anne. And she sits down with the child in her lap and gives him some cake and, I think, some roasted fish. I can see that she does something before giving it to him. Perhaps she removes a fish bone. She has served her husband first. She eats last. The night is more and more crowded with stars and the camp with lights. Then little by little many lights go out. They are the lamps of those who were the first to have supper and who now go to sleep. Also the buzzing slowly decreases. No more children's voices are heard. Only some babies still unweaned raise their lamb-like little voices seeking their mother's milk. The night blows her breath over places and people and obliterates pains and memories, hopes and ill feelings. Nay, perhaps these last 2 survive in dreams, although alleviated by sleep. And says so to her husband while lulling Alpheus, who is falling asleep in her arms. Last night I dreamt that next year I will be coming to the holy city for 2 feasts, instead of 1 only. And one will be the offering of my creature to the temple. Oh, Joachim. Do hope, and did you not perceive anything else? Did the Lord not whisper anything to your heart? Nothing. Only a dream. Tomorrow is the last day of prayer. All the offerings have already been made. But we will renew them again tomorrow, solemnly. We shall gain our favor from God by our faithful love. I always think that it will happen to you as it did to Anna of Elkanah. May God grant it, and I wish I had someone say to me now, go in peace. The God of Israel has granted the grace you asked for. If the grace comes, your child will tell you turning over for the first time in your womb, and it will be the voice of an innocent, therefore the voice of God. The camp is now silent in darkness. And also takes Alpheus to the adjoining hut, and puts him on the bed near his little brothers, who are already asleep. Then she lies down beside Joachim and their lamp also goes out, one of the little stars on earth. More beautiful, the stars in the vault of heaven remain watching over mankind asleep. Jesus says, the just are always wise, because, as friends of God, they live in his company and are taught by him, yes, by him, infinite wisdom. My grandparents were just and therefore they possessed wisdom. They could quote accurately from the book, singing the praises of wisdom from its context. She it was I loved and searched for from my youth. I resolved to have her as my bride. Anne of Aaron was the strong woman of whom our ancestor speaks. And Joachim, a descendant of King David, had not sought so much charm and wealth as virtue, and possessed a great virtue. All holy attributes joined together like a sweet-smelling bunch of flowers to become one beautiful thing that was, this exceptional virtue. A real virtue, worthy of being set before the throne of God. Joachim had therefore married wisdom twice, loving her more than any other woman, the wisdom of God enshrined in the heart of a just woman. Anne of Aaron had not sought anything else but to join her life to that of an upright man, certain that family joy lies in uprighteousness. And to be the embodiment of the strong woman she lacked only the crown of children, the glory of the married woman, the justification of marriage, the one of which Solomon speaks. As for her happiness she lacked children, the flowers of a tree that has become one thing with the adjoining tree and obtains thereof abundance of new fruit, in which the 2 good qualities blend into one, because she had never experienced any disappointment on account of her husband. Although she was now approaching old age and had been Joachim's wife for many years, she was always for him the spouse of his youth, his joy, the most dear hind, the graceful fawn, whose caresses always had the fresh charm of a first nuptial evening and sweetly fascinated his love, keeping it as fresh as a flower sprinkled with dew, and as ardent as a fire continuously kept burning. Therefore, in their affliction, their childless state, they spoke to each other words of consolation in their thoughts and troubles. And eternal wisdom, when the time came, besides teaching them in waking consciousness, enlightened them with dreams at night, visions of the poem of glory that was to come from them and was most holy Mary, my mother. If their humility made them hesitant, their hearts trembled in hope at the first hint of God's promise. There was already certainty in Joachim's words, do hope. We shall gain our favor from God by our faithful love. They were dreaming of a child, they got the mother of God. The words of the book of wisdom appear to be written for them, by means of her I shall acquire glory before the people. By means of her, immortality shall be mine and I shall leave an everlasting memory to my successors. But to obtain all this they had to become masters of a true and lasting virtue which no event marred. Virtue of faith. Virtue of charity. Virtue of hope. Virtue of chastity. The chastity of a married couple. They possessed it, because it is not necessary to be virgins to be chaste. And chaste nuptial beds are guarded by angels, and from them descend good children who make the virtue of their parents the rule of their lives. But where are they now? Now children are not wanted, neither is chastity. I therefore say that love and marriage are desecrated. For with a canticle, and announces that she is a mother. August 24, 1944. I see Joachim and Anne's house once again. Nothing is changed inside, with the exception that there are many branches full of flowers, placed in amphoras here and there, certainly the fruit of the pruning of the trees in the orchard, all in bloom, a cloud varying from snow white to the red of certain corals. Also Anne's work is different. On the smaller of two looms she is weaving some lovely linen cloth and is singing, moving her feet to the rhythm of the song. She is singing and smiling. At whom? At herself, at something she is aware of in her inside. I have written separately the slow and yet gay song, so that I might follow it, for she repeats it several times as if she rejoices in it. She sings it more and more loudly and with certainty, like someone who found a melody in her heart and at first whispers it softly and then, being sure, proceeds faster and in a higher tone. The slow and yet gay song, which I am transcribing because it is so sweet in its simplicity, says, Glory to the Almighty Lord who had love for the children of David. Glory to the Lord. His supreme grace has visited me from heaven. The old tree has borne a new branch and I am blessed. At the feast of lights hope scattered the seed, now the fragrance of Nisan sees it germinating. Like an almond tree my flesh is adorned with flowers in spring. In the evening she perceives she is bearing her fruit. On that branch there is a rose, there is a most sweet apple. There is a bright star, an innocent little child. There is the joy of the house, of the husband and wife. Praise be to God, to my Lord, who had mercy on me. His light said to me, a star will come to you. Glory, glory. Yours shall be the fruit of this tree. The first and last, holy, and pure as a gift of the Lord. Fly, shuttle. Fasten the yarn for the infant's cloth. The infant is about to be born. May the song of my heart rise to God singing hosannas. Joachim comes in when she is about to repeat her song for the fourth time. Are you happy, Anne? You look like a bird in spring. What song is that? I have never heard anyone sing it. Where does it come from? From my heart, Joachim. Anne has got up and is now moving towards her husband, smiling happily. She looks younger and lovelier than ever. I did not know you were a poet, declares her husband looking at her with obvious admiration. They do not look like an elderly couple. In their glances there is the fondness of young couples. I came from the other end of the orchard when I heard you singing. For years I had not heard your voice, that of a turtle dove in love. Do you mind repeating that song for me? I would repeat it even if you did not ask me. The children of Israel have always entrusted to songs the sincere cries of their hopes, joys and pains. I have entrusted to a song the task of telling myself and you a great joy. Yes, also of telling myself because it is such a great thing that although I am sure of it now, it does not yet seem to me to be true, and she begins the song over again. But when she comes to the point, on that branch there is a rose, there is a most sweet apple, a star, her well-tuned contralto voice at first trembles, then it breaks, and with a sob of joy she looks at Joachim and raising her arms she cries, I am a mother, my darling. And she takes refuge on his heart, between the arms that he has held out and has now clasped around his happy wife. This is the most chaste and happy embrace that I have ever seen in my life, chaste and ardent in its chastity. And the sweet reproach is whispered over Anne's gray hair, and you were not telling me. Because I wanted to be sure. Old as I am. To know that I am a mother. I could not believe it was true. I did not want to give you the most bitter disappointment of all. Since the end of December I have perceived that my womb was becoming new and bearing, as I say, a new branch. But now on that branch the fruit is certain. See. That linen is for the one that is coming. Yours it shall be, and may joy and peace come upon the earth. Is it not the linen that you bought in Jerusalem in October? Yes, it is. I spun it while I was waiting, and hoping. I was hoping because the last day while I was praying in the temple, as close as possible for a woman to be to the house of God, and it was already evening. Remember that I was saying, a little longer, a little more. I could not withdraw from the place without receiving the grace. Well, in the growing darkness, from inside the sacred place, where I was watching from the depth of my soul, to obtain assent from the ever-present God, I saw a light, a spark of beautiful light depart. It was as white as the moon, and yet it had in itself all the brightness of all the pearls and gems that are in the world. It seemed that one of the precious stars of the veil, the stars placed under the feet of the cherubim, had become detached and bright with the supernatural light. It seemed that beyond the sacred veil, from the glory itself, a fire started which came quickly towards me, and while cutting through the air, it sang with a heavenly voice chanting, May what you ask for, come to you. That is why I sing, a star will come to you. What child will ours ever be? Since it reveals itself as the light of a star in the temple and in the feast of lights says, I am. Did you perhaps foresee rightly when you thought I would be a new Anne of Elkanah? How shall we name our creature, whom I perceived talking to me in my womb as sweetly as the melody of waters, with its little heart beating repeatedly like the heart of a pretty turtle dove held in one's hands? If it is a boy we shall call him Samuel. If a girl, Star. The word that stopped your song to give me the joy of learning that I am a father. The form it took to reveal itself in the holy shade of the temple. Star. Our star, because, I don't know why, but I think it is a girl. I think that such sweet caresses can only come from a most sweet daughter. Because I do not bear her, I have no pain. It is she who takes me on a blue flowery path, as if I were supported by holy angels and the earth was already far away. I have always heard women say that it is painful to conceive and to bear. But I have no pain. I feel strong, young, fresher than when I presented you with my virginity in my faraway youth. Daughter of God, because this creature born of a barren stump, is more of God than ours. She gives no pain to her mother. She only brings her peace and blessings, the fruits of God, her true father. Mary, then, we shall call her. Star of our sea, pearl, happiness. The name of the first great woman in Israel. But she will never sin against the Lord, and to him only she will give her songs, because she is offered to him, a victim before being born. Yes,